Like Kenyan Day.
You have shit tattoo!
Close the road. Supremacist terrorist sympathisers. Stop facilitating access to this event, Victorian Police! There's no access to this event. Turn around and go home.
Nazi scum!
For those of us who like petitions, there's a petition!
Sure. So can you tell me why you're here today, what this event is about?
We're launching the branch of my party once it gets registered, but we're launching it here today. So just call some people who are interested in maybe getting involved, and we've got to turn up already. So that's what I'm doing here.
Can you tell us about what those policies of the new party are?
Of my party? Pretty much they've been pretty well publicised. I'm for developing the country, getting some infrastructure, getting people back to work, getting out of the United Nations, stopping Muslim immigration and black African immigration, which has been a disaster. Stopping foreign aid to countries that hate us, plus other policies, but they're the main ones for a start off.
With what happened in Christchurch yesterday, you made a comment, I saw it on Twitter, and I'm sure that a lot of other people saw it there, and there was a lot of backlash to that comment. Can you explain what you meant by that comment and why you think there was such an aggressive backlash to that?
No idea why there's such an aggressive backlash, but Muslim immigration has been a disaster in every country it's been tried. And now we're seeing some more violence because of it. In the last 30 days, there have been 122 Muslim terrorist attacks in 21 countries, killing 857 people. So where you have Muslim immigration, you will have violence and people dying. Unfortunately, no one condones it. It was a disaster yesterday. It was a dreadful thing to happen. We all abhor that, but the fact is that that's what happens in a country when you bring people in who do not want to integrate.
Can I just ask, it seems in your tweet yesterday you seem to blame the Muslim people in Christchurch for what happened.
No, that's just the way people took it. I didn't do that at all. What I said was that wherever Muslims are coming into a country, you do have violence. This unfortunate incident is violence against them. Usually it's the other way around.
What would you say to the people who are going to be protesting today? Because there has been talk of people coming down and protesting. What would you have to say to them?
Find something better to do. Go and get a job. We have free speech in this country still. Well, nearly free speech. Section 18C takes a lot of that away, but people have the right to voice their opinions, and Australian people definitely have their right to an opinion on who comes to this country. For the last 45 years, no government's given the Australian people a say in who comes to their country. It's about time the Australian people had a say in who comes here, and let them have a vote if they want any more of these sort of people coming into their country, and I'm happy to go along with the umpire's decision.
Speaking of free speech, after what you said yesterday, a lot of your tweets were removed off Twitter for violation of the community service guidelines, and you posted this morning that they've basically prevented you from posting. Do you feel like that is a attack on your free speech?
There was only one tweet that came from my office, no others, and if they want to take it down, then that's up to them. But of course it's an attack on free speech.
You've called for, if people of African descent are convicted of crimes, that they should be deported along with their families.
Absolutely, yeah.
How can that work? How can their families be blamed for their crimes?
When you've got a 12 and 13-year-old out there bashing people in the street, what's mum and dad doing? If they can't control them, then they should be all deported, the whole family back there to Sudan. The other thing about it also, Anthony, is that we've given these people refuge, right? They're refugees, apparently. They've crossed 10 or 12 countries to get here. So now they get here and we've given them refuge. They've run away a lot of the times from their own enemies. Our diggers and our army have been over there fighting their battle over there with the Americans and the Brits. Well, we've now conquered ISIS and some of the other despotic bloody Islamic groups. It's safe for them to go back. So once you've given somebody refuge, why not let them go home to their home country? Now it's safe. We've fought their battle because, you know, there's a double whammy. You see, the first one is that the Australian people, the taxpayers, hard-working taxpayers, are paying for them to be here. And number two, we paid our army to be over there. That cost us a lot of money. So it's time they went home, start rebuilding their own country, and then give our Australian taxpayers a break. And yes, if they're violent Sudanese gangs that we have here, it's time they went home.
Bit of a hypothetical here then. What if some people, say, fled Northern Ireland during the conflicts that were happening there and came here, and then they were like, the Irish youth were being violent? Would you want to deport those Irish people back to Ireland now that things are better?
Anyone who comes here as a guest of our country and who commits crimes should be sent home to where they came from. Now, with the Irish, they all come here, 99% of them are straight into work, unlike 99% of these people. They get a job, they start building the country and they help us. So not only are we not getting anything out of these people, we're getting, you know, our citizens flogged on the streets. You know, we've got people killed in Burke Street, you know, little Zachary Bryant, 3 months old, he's now dead. His family will never get over that. We've got Talia Haken, a little 10-year-old dead. You know, these people are gone, you know, and it's time that we start protecting Australian citizens. That's what our government's employed to do.
Decorum, you're a bunch of guys in wife beaters talking about decorum.
White beaters?
Blue wife beaters and blue beards talking about how the country used to be so decorate?
Okay, hang on, no. So what can we
used to have block parties. Universities.
Yeah, Monash.
Universities.
The Monash, the indoctrination.
The definition of university is higher learning. It's a daycare centre for adults.
No.
The university is full of fucking retards.
For old children.
Our fucking IQ has dropped 20 points in the last 40 years.
Actually, the opposite. That's the opposite of society.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I understand we arrived at the same time, and I actually was doing an interview with one of those girls, which made it look like we arrived together, but actually we just came from Monash campus. We're doing a special crash course today on how to be a journalist, and we just needed a story to try to present an unbiased view.
Our objective today is really to just give your side and like them to just let us know what
genetically.
You know, my missus is Korean. I have multicultural children. She doesn't disagree with Senator Anning. So why do you, as a white person, you're bringing this racist thing?
You've got this going. You've
got
got more
racist
people
thing?
here than we have.
I'm not saying
I've
about
actually
race.
got-
What's this?
I just got here, mate.
Next to him.
I just
And,
got
like,
here. I stand for
next to him
myself.
supporting
You've got
this.
I stand for myself.
Have I called you any names? No. Are you calling me a name?
I called you a name. Why didn't you talk to me about IQs?
You're calling me a name?
Yes.
Think of it as a name,
Do you see what happened?
All right, we covered this a
My
second.
children don't have your skin colour.
So, what's your point exactly?
Why are you calling me a racist?
If you're not a racist, why are you supporting someone who joined the One Nation Party, a party that
Well,
used to
apart from
campaign
being in
against
lockdown,
Asian immigration specifically?
Asian immigration. Muslim and
Asian
African.
invasion?
Muslim and African.
Oh, now?
immigration.
Yeah. So it's the thing that...
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
Can you please get out of my fucking face?
I fucking want you.
Get back! Get back!
Hey, don't touch, man.
You're getting aggressive.
Yeah, there is. No, you're not shit. If you divide up $70 trillion between $7 billion...
There's no poverty, exactly.
There is poverty. You get $10,000 per person, you fucking ignoramus.
That's above the international poverty standard. Do you know
$10,000.
anything?
I can't buy cigarettes for $10,000, you fucking idiot. Yeah,
The international definition of poverty. Do you know what that is?
international definition of poverty is that you're a fucking...
Hey, do you guys talk about free speech?
You know nothing
Hey,
about
you guys
that.
go about how it's wrong to censor free speech?
I'm asking you a question. Who are you? Who are you? It doesn't matter. I'm asking you a question. Don't answer a question with a question.
Ah, good point. Stephen, what?
I didn't ask you that. I said, who the fuck are you?
What do you reckon about that? And you know, they reckon I deserved it. I got attacked with an Australian flag on Australia Day, and they reckon I deserved it for standing there.
When did this happen?
Oh, well, obviously the 26th of January, mate. Figure it out.
This year?
So, yeah, obviously. You obviously don't watch the media too much. Have I got any proof what I on the news?
Yeah, we're on the news. Go.
Just to oppose far-right policies in Australia and their inevitable consequences like we saw in Christchurch yesterday.
What do you think is the reason why these things happened in Christchurch yesterday?
Radicalization of far-right extremists. I mean, it's concerning when radicalization happens amongst Islamists, and it's concerning when it happens amongst right-wing people. And this is a perfect example of what these people are like.
And what were your opinions of what Fraser Anning said yesterday when he basically blamed the Muslim population?
I must say I haven't read exactly what he said. I was coming here anyway to protest Anning, but I understand his statements were apologist for what happened, and if that's the case, that's awful. But I can't say concretely because I haven't read it.
Yeah. I don't give a fuck you're here.
Oh,
you're just a piece of shit.
What are you here? Are you here for this meeting, or are you here to antagonise people?
No, I'm just here to stand in fucking solidarity with 47 fucking people who were killed yesterday. Or was it 49? I can't even remember. And Fraser Anning saying he's not a fucking terrorist. Then he's not a terrorist. He's a vigilante. Is he the guy who shot them all?
Can you just tell us what you're here for today?
Because I can't believe that this is happening in society. It's really sad. Like that that guy threatens to hit me with a hammer because I just want to. I don't know. I'm not here against him. I'm just here against Anning's comments, saying that this guy. I've never even done a fucking anti-fascist thing in my life, and my legs are shaking and shit. Like I can't agree with him calling this fucker a vigilante. That's just disgusting. He's a terrorist. He killed so many people, and it's got me out here to try and. I don't know why I came, but I just want to go home now. I think I've seen enough.
This is fucking inconceivable. The shame, the worldwide shame upon us, upon white people, and upon Australia since yesterday, and the fucking heartbreak. And to think that one day later, this man who capitalised off that and victim blamed the Muslims who died wants to come here, and these people want to celebrate and fucking venerate this man. It's absolutely shameful, and that's why we've all rocked up. You know, it didn't take much organisation for all these good people to rock up, and the reason it is because they didn't need much of it. They're just acting on their moral code. There is no moral code in there. You know, how can you just, this endless desire to trigger lefties to the point where you're supporting this man who wants to capitalise and make political capital off of mass murder? I don't know what our country's come to, but this is the fucking worst of it. Fine. All you have to do is hop into Senator Fraser Anning's Facebook comments. People laughing about it, as though it's something to celebrate. We don't celebrate when ISIS kill people, we fucking mourn it. We don't celebrate when one of these arseholes, and he is an adherent to the same ideology that Fraser Anning touts on his page every day, we don't celebrate when he does it either. We fucking mourn it, and we try to figure out how to change it. And these people sit here and try to make mileage out of it. It's shameful. It's a dark day.
Talk about the ways that you have helped make it possible for the white supremacist and Islamophobic terrorism that we've seen in New Zealand yesterday.
I'm a volunteer working for Victorian citizens. My name's Shane Lewis. These people here I've come to talk with. I thought they were Australians.
Shame! Mourning it, I'd rather be at home or with my Muslim friends mourning it. But this senator inside here, a man that your taxpayer dollars allowed to be in Parliament by a fucking fluke, God knows how. He capitalised off of that tragedy. He blamed the Muslims in some inconceivable stretch of logic that I still fail to understand. The best I can estimate as to why he did it is because you can gain so much mileage these days out of triggering us leftists that there's no new bottom depth that you can reach. It's all just lower and lower and lower. And after several years of that, what we see online... Nazis!
There's no love in your heart.
After several years of that process of just mining the depths of broken political discourse, we've got half of these people sitting there online laughing about a mass murder. We don't celebrate when people are murdered. It doesn't matter who's doing the murdering, we mourn it and we try to figure out how to change it. We don't use it to try and create political mileage for our shitty electoral campaign.
Fucking dog!
Tell yourself! We're here to acknowledge the shame of these people celebrating mass murder, and you need to remember that Fraser Anning's ideology is the same as the man that did this yesterday. He talks about the same subjects: white replacement, white genocide, every day on his fucking page.
Well, while we're here today, it's just incredibly distressing. Actually, it's really fucking upsetting to be here. There's a mass murder in New Zealand yesterday that, just strictly according to the guidelines of the philosophy, if you can call it that, of the people going in here to see Fraser Anning, and then on top of that, like, just the horrible timing that they're having this event, the fact that Fraser Anning jumped straight on top of the news of a mass murder and blamed Muslims for a slaughter of Muslims. There's no bottom to what these fucking Nazis will get at. I mean, they're Nazis. White supremacists are Nazis. That's all there is to it. They're extremely dangerous, violent people, and I'm just really fucking worried about it, you know. But we're here, we've got a good turnout today with very limited heads up, you know, very limited time for people to get organised, and we're basically letting people know that if they're budding Nazis, if they want to join the fucking Nazi movement, if they come anywhere public, we will be there and we will make it as humiliating for them as humanly possible. Just with our words, you know, just with our fucking emotions, because...
Dogs! You fucking dogs!
Are they meeting there?
How do you plan to protect the nuclear family in Victoria and in your party, and to stop the indoctrination of our kids, so that we can actually grow the next generation for Australia, so that we don't lose our identity like I've seen one country lose its identity, and you have no idea what that's like.
I agree with you, thank you. Just on the South African thing for a start off, I don't know if you know it, but I have a bill or a motion in Parliament to get 10,000 emergency visas for South African farmers white South Africans who are being slaughtered simply because of their race and because they have built something, as opposed to the people who are attacking them and slaughtering them on a daily basis. And I know most of you have never seen the photos. I get them, thousands of them every week from South African farmers showing me what's happened. I mean, pouring boiling water down a 4-year-old child's neck to kill him, and then dismembering a mother, and it's horrendous stuff, and I've got the photos, and you don't want to see them, and they're the people who are being slaughtered, and there's no outcry at all, you know, and they're being slaughtered because they're white. Pardon? So, you know, what I'm trying to do is, and the South Africans, by the way, are the best settlers you could ever have. They've got the same values as we do. They're hard-working, they're great farmers, they're great people. They get jobs as soon as they get here. The only place you'll never find them is on the welfare lines. But so on that, you know, I agree. Our family units are being destroyed with the safe schools bullshit. You know, that's a horrendous thing that they've been putting in there. And the idea is the socialists love to separate the children from their parents. The state will look after your children much better than you will. And once they get control of them, then they can indoctrinate them. But what I will say is what's really, really interesting is that the last meeting we had in Brisbane a few days ago, over 50% of the people were under 35. So it hasn't worked with the young people who are in here today. They've got enough brains to understand, and they've seen through the bullshit, and they're coming here and trying to fix up the problems that we have in this country, which is really encouraging.
My issue is with arming ourselves. I think we have the right to protect our families, protect our home in every possible way, whatever you feel is necessary. Just making arms a bit easier for someone to get a hold of, just with the Sudanese problem we've got. Is that going to be an issue? You know, at the moment they're taking knives to people, whatever they can get their hands on. If they can they have easier access to firearms, I guess. Is that going to be a big issue in moving forward? Or?
Look, I think I can tell you now 100% the criminals have all got their firearms. Funnily enough, they didn't turn up at the bloody buyback and hand them in when all of the rest of us did. And by the way, it wasn't a buyback, it was confiscation with compensation, because the government never owned our guns for a start off. So it's not about the guns really, and everyone gets sort of fixated on that because you've had 30 years of indoctrination by the left-wing media telling us that guns are the problem. But you know, if you can't see the correlation between gun ownership and socialist agendas, then you know we've got a problem. People have got to understand there's a reason that this country is disarmed. Just the same reason as Venezuela was disarmed and Germany was disarmed before 6 or 7 million people were slaughtered, and Russia was disarmed before Stalin killed over 50 million people and Mao Zedong killed them. You can't oppress a country if you're still armed, you know, which is why America is still armed. And everyone thinks there's huge gun violence in America. I've lived a long time on and off in America. And if I told you how America ranks in gun crime in the world, most people think it'd be in the top 5 countries for gun crime. It's actually 111. So, and take 3 cities out of there and it's like 200. So, you know, and they're mainly criminals killing criminals for crack cocaine. So I think it's everyone's right to be able to protect their family. Me as a dad, and if I can't protect my family, I don't know what I'm doing here. So, and that's not a government-given right, that's a God-given right. You know, it's governments took away that right.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate.
In your view, what is a greater threat to the Australian nation? Is it Islamic immigration, or is it the media vilifying, isolating and ostracising anyone who's white and not ashamed of it?
Good point. Muslim immigration, of course, is, I believe, a huge threat to us, to our society. In 1970, we were 99% European. We're just below 70% European now and heading in the wrong direction. Now, if anyone in this room or in this country wants to live in a predominantly Asian society, a predominantly African society, a predominantly Middle Eastern society, I can tell you where to go. You can go to Peking, or you can go to, you know, Sudan, or you can go to Afghanistan. You can live in that sort of society. But I don't believe that most of us do, and I don't believe anyone in this room or anyone, the right-thinking people in this country, want to be a minority in their own country. But we are rapidly heading to being a minority in our own country, where terms will be dictated by other people, because it's a democracy. So we've already got 7 Muslims in Parliament. There'll be more and more, and eventually, you know, they'll be controlling how you live, how you do everything in your life. We've seen how they do that in some other countries, and I'm not sure that most people want it. And even the people who are wishing for it and advocating for it, they find out at the end that they're not happy with what they got. You know, the Venezuelans are very, very upset with what they got. People in some of these other countries that are now complete Islamic countries are not happy with what they've got. So the media is pushing it, you're right. You know, it'd be great to have a good conservative channel. We did have Sky there, and they were good for a while, and then they've lost a bit of heart. They won't put me on there anymore. Channel 10's been calling me all morning, but I haven't been able to do anything. But it'll only be to have a crack at me, which they do all the time.
I'm on about the family law courts. That's
Yep.
what's happening, and Pauline Hanson mentioned back in February
that there's been nothing been done at all about the family law reform, and that there's fathers killing themselves each day for child access issues. What's your view on the actual Parliament side of things, what's happening with the family law reform?
This gentleman just asked about the family law court. That's a disgrace. It's so in favour of destroying the fathers usually. I'm not saying they're all good, but there's a lot of people who are committing suicide every day. I don't know how many a day now, 21 a day or something, or 21 a week. And you know, they're just using the children as a lever, and it sort of it destroys people. So we've got to reform that family law court. I've talked about it in the Senate. Pauline's talked about it in the Senate, and she and I, there was 4 of us sitting on one side and the rest of them on the other side again the other couple of months ago when they had that vote. But that has to be reformed, and listen to everyone's side, not just one side. Oh, sorry.
I just want to say thank you very much for having a voice. You've brought my son here, who's just turned 18. So thank you for that, because he is about to vote and he's listened, he's come off his own back. I just want to say thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure. I love coming down here. Last time I was here was in Kilda, and this is what the left-wing media do, by the way. I don't know how many were at St Kilda. I know a few of you are here at St Kilda, but there was a group of normal Australian working people, decent tax-paying Aussies, listening to different people speak, and all I heard there was Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. But 150 metres down the road, there's a bunch of lunatics with black bandanas, and they're walking around doing Nazi. I won't put my hand up because somebody will photograph me. And doing Nazi salutes and singing out Nazi, Nazi, Nazi. And there were 3 Green politicians there, and so the left-wing media decided to attribute their actions to where I was, which was complete fake, and everyone picked it up and said, oh, there with all the neo-Nazis and all this sort of stuff. Well, I don't know if you know, but in the Senate, I'm the only person who put up a motion to stop funding the Palestinian Authority because they're killing innocent people. They just happen to be Jewish people in Israel. I also put up another motion to... Pardon? Who's that? Do they? Oh, really? Okay. Well, that's your opinion, but it's not mine. Okay. No, that's fair enough. I'm happy to have people disagree. Everyone can have an opinion. And then, so the other one was to move the embassy from, Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and get the whole Senate, the Liberal, Labor and the Greens all voted against that. And yet I'm the anti-Semite. So I don't know where that was going, but the Israelis have done a great job over there. They've sort of got enemies all around them. They're the only democracy in the whole place. And they've created a beautiful area out of a wasteland, which is pretty much a desert. And of course, everyone wants to take them over, or one to kill them. And what maybe you don't know is that there'll be 150 rockets sent into just suburbs of mums and dads and kids. And when there's a retaliation, of course, then we see the retaliation of the Israelis.
Hi Fraser, how are you? Thank you for coming here.
You're welcome.
I'm just touching on our legal sector again. We have major problems in our legal system in Australia, but Victoria in particular. I have sat in the federal court in Melbourne, listened to dozens of cases where Australians were being given criminal charges or criminal, fines for not voting, or that's what minor.
Yeah.
And yet every immigrant, it was clearly new immigrants that were there, every one of them had their cases dismissed without even having the charges read out. One of them had 7 charges, criminal charges. And what it's doing is skewing our crime statistics to make it look like there's a balance in the criminal statistics. So we're not getting a true reflection of the level of crime that is happening here in Victoria.
I agree with
So we need to deal with our legal system, the judiciary, and our lawyers that are committing these crimes. The crimes against us.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't know if you heard the other day in Western Australia now, when they give a description of the person who's committed the offence, they're not allowed to give race or ethnicity. So they're going to say, okay, a guy 6'3" of medium build bashed and robbed somebody. Well, that's actually doing the opposite of giving you an idea who it is, because if he's a 6'3" Sudanese, it's a completely different thing, isn't it? But they've cut that out. And that's what they do. So I agree with you. It's very skewed, and that's what they're doing. For 45 years, no one has ever asked us, the people of Australia, who we want to come to this country. These governments, since Whitlam, has been stuffing their electorates with people who are going to put their hand out, and we know how they're going to vote. If I'm paying you the money, there's two sorts of people in the world, and there's people who work for a living, there's people who vote for a living. These people vote for a living, and those people do. So if I stuff my electorates full of these people who want to live off your hard work, then I know exactly how they're going to vote. They're going to vote for the guy who keeps paying them that money. So, we have to get control of that, and hopefully down the track, if we can get enough people in there with the right will to do something, good solid conservatives like we're now getting to stand for us, we've got a really good chance of blocking anything that these left-wing government, whichever one it happens to be, and if it's short and you can pack your bags now, I think, but I will be. So we need to get control of what's happening, and we can only do it by having enough people in the Senate and the lower house, but particularly the Senate.
Public advocate, Victoria, represent this for 22 years.
Sorry?
I've been a public advocate representing people on mental health orders in Victoria.
Yep.
In Victoria, when you're deemed mentally unstable, you usually get put on high-dose psychiatric drugs for foreign pharmaceutical profits. For 22 years, I've been trying to get better care for them.
Yep.
Currently, there's about over $1 billion being given to foreign pharmaceutical companies for toxic drugs instead of giving these people proper care with good nutrition, a place to be in the community, and just common decency. When these people are walking around, everybody sees them all drugged up. For 22 years, I've been trying to get them better care.
Good
and
idea.
I think the federal government should wake up and step into this problem.
I agree with you, and I think the government is awake to it, but Big Pharma is big money people, and they donate heavily to big government, and doctors don't talk about cures anymore, it's only about treatment, because that's where the money is. So, I agree, if we can keep on selling the drugs, Big Pharma is very happy, and unfortunately the people who are on those drugs are not getting the care that they should. And that's another battle. And by the way, there's about 1 million battles, including family law courts and all that. And the more that you try and attack, the wider you try and spread yourself. It's like a shotgun. You're missing out on the things that are the greatest threat to us right now, which is Muslim immigration, Chinese takeover by stealth, and becoming a socialist country. And so if they're our first battles, which as far as I'm concerned, they're my first battles, if we can win some of those, then we can get on to the other things, and one will cure the other.
What's your short-term plan in the next 6 months, and how can we help as supporters?
Short-term plan is get the party registered in the next week or so, get as many people as we can on board to help us, with flyers and, doing at the polling booths. By the way, the polling booth's the best place to be if anyone is going to volunteer to hand out how to vote cards and put up a few core flutes, which are even more important, is the pre-polling. In Australia now is around about 40% last election pre-polled. It's growing every year. 20 years ago it'd be 5%, now it's up to 40%, and this next election may be 45%. So you get a lot of bang for your buck, because each electorate only maybe has one or possibly two pre-polling areas, so you only need a couple of people to cover them, and you'll get a lot of cut through. Where we're winning a lot is on the social media. I can show you something in there that this last week, the average, I think Pauline had, how many was it, Boston? 117,000 engagements, and was, yeah, we were 588,000 engagements. She was the next to us. So, you know, we're nearly 5 times as high as the next politician in Australia is following our social media. So as much as you can, you know, share as much as you can, because that's where you win. I don't know if you know that 3 months out from the Brazilian election, Bolsonaro, the name Bolsonaro, no one knew it. And he's now the president. And he did it all on social media, just like Trump did. Trump got a lot more coverage on mainstream media, mainly to pull him apart. But, you know, any publicity is okay publicity, but Bolsonaro had nothing, and he did it all on social media. So we can win seats on social media, you know, but we can win the thing on social media so long as everyone's sharing as much as you can. Some of them have now been booted from, they will be booted, like Barry O'Sullivan, for instance. He and I got the Royal Commission into banking going. For doing that, he's now not been pre-selected, so he's finished. And so the left wing in their party, which is most of their party now, in the Liberals and Nats, they'll just flick you as soon as you, you know, maybe vote your voice. As far as that goes, and we're all Nazis, well, I've met a whole lot of people here. I'm still yet to meet the first Nazi here, but maybe he's hiding down the back, I don't know. I think most people who have an opinion, and as I said, the people, I've had 34 hotels in my life, and I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people in public bars, in cattle areas, in regional areas, and in the cities. And I can tell you now, you're with a huge group, because if I walk into any of those bars now and there's a bar full of guys and I say, who here wants to get out of the United Nations, I guarantee you'll get 100% hands risen. The same with who here wants Muslim immigration to stop, 100% you'll get. Who here wants no more foreign aid to countries that use it to buy helicopters that may attack us one day, you get 100%. And that's what the Australian people, the decent, hard-working Australian people believe. And somebody said, oh, you're not talking for anyone in Australia. So look, I'm not talking for everyone. All I'm talking for is the people that I grew up with and I've worked with for all my bloody life, and the decent people who pay their taxes. So I'm not talking for the leafy suburbs in bloody Toorak and wherever else they happen to be. You know, I'm a voice, hopefully, for the people that I've listened to and grown up with and worked with all my life. Thank you. I think, is that it? One more question.
Fraser, you were talking about projects to reroute water to create more farmland.
Yep.
And that's just the kind of national project Australia needs. We need a large national project to unite people. People are divided. People are disenfranchised. People have got no sort of goal to head towards. And that's just the kind of talk which will set the country straight. How would you go about initiating a project?
A great question, and I'll just tell you, Leon Ashby here is the designer of the scheme that we have. It's like the Bradfield scheme. I don't know if you know the Bradfield scheme was the Tully, the Herbert and the Burdekin running into that dam, and then the Hell's Gate Dam, and then being piped through the Great Dividing Range, which by world terms is just a little hill, into the arid western country. I come from a cattle station. I've watched all our cattle die in droughts and sheep die. And so we can water that inland. We can create masses of wealth, and it's easy. It's not impossible. And by the way, Leon's scheme is all gravity fed, so there's no pumping. I don't know if you know, but if you pump water, it costs you about $25 a megalitre to pump it. So if you can do it without that, then it's free, and it will be running in 2,000 years' time. In 213 BC, Rome built its first aqueduct, which was gravity fed, and it's still running today. So you can run water forever once you've got it like a 1 in 3,000 fall, which is about the average of most rivers in Australia. And these dams on the Walsh, the Tate, the Ironsley, you know, the Flinders. There's so many places we can put in beautiful dams. I was in California about 3 or 4 months ago, They have 10 million acres under irrigation in absolute desert. Not beautiful soil like we have in Queensland and northern New South Wales, but desert. And they've got these 10 million acres that we drove all the way through, and every paddock, everything, there's grapes and there's walnuts and avocados and lettuce, and people working in every one of those fields, packing, planting or picking, and it's employed hundreds of thousands of people, and it's creating a huge amount of wealth for California. I don't know if you know, but California is now the 5th largest economy in the world, and one of the reasons is it has that agriculture, and we could be doing exactly the same, employing Australians. We'd be self-sufficient for food for the rest of our life. We're now importing so much rubbish from all these other countries. Australia is the largest island in the world with the cleanest oceans in the world, and yet we import 75% of our seafood. That's just a madness. Everyone around the world's laughing at us while we're buying their rubbishy fish out of the Mekong Delta. So I think, I don't know, but it's getting a bit warm in here, and I'm sure you guys have got somewhere to go to. So thank you very much for coming, and I really appreciate it.
Quickly, could talk to you more when we contact you. Thanks very much.
Okay. Or like the evil ones, and they're the innocent people. So, sorry, what was your first name?
You going to tell him? I'll just put my recorder in.
Pick him up and get him out. Come on, dear fucking weak prick you are. Pick him up and get him out. Get him out. Get the cops. Get the cops. Don't let him hold him, mate. Get his cops. Get your hand off his neck. Get your hand off his neck. You are the police. Get your hand off his neck. Get your hand off his neck. Get the cops. I ain't letting him go, mate. I am not letting him go. Sorry to bring. Alright, that's fine. Get off his neck. He's fine. He's fine. He's submit. It's the wrong way, is it? What's the right way, huh? Yeah, what excuse you got, huh? Huh? What excuse you got? Get out of here, mate. Get out of here. Who knows what he'll do if he's dead? Sorry. So egging a bloke in the head, what point have you proven that? So you're putting an egg in his face, you're not putting an egg on my face, and you're putting it in every other Australians that had a gut full. Just hold him, don't hit him. He has made a mistake, but he's got to be fucking learned properly, mate. He's got more right. No, you can't get up, mate. You're being arrested. What he's doing is for your future. Did he get Fraser? Yes. Does he have any weapons on him? You've got to understand, mate. Job, mate. You can't say he's on the wrong way. Pull my pants down, bro. That's him, Will Connolly. What's his name? Will Connolly. Going to jail, Will Connolly. Mate, I just can't believe you did that. You have not achieved anything. What you've done is thrown about 60 people here, 60 to 100 people. You've thrown an egg at every one of us. Are we all in the wrong? No, you're not. Yeah, no, but what you've done is basically throwing an egg in our face. All right, smoke it up now. No, you're not being arrested, mate. You got the federal police on your lips. You're fucked, man. I just can't believe you've done that, mate. No, he's all right, mate. He's only learned from his lesson. Okay? He's already done it. Made a mistake. You make mistakes. And you know what you're going to do on Facebook? I'm a hero. But guess what, mate? In the real world, you ain't a hero. What's the cops? Just remember that. it's okay, mate. We know your name, mate. We know your address. No, it's okay, mate. Where you want? Grandfather's secretary in Tombstone.
My grandfather did too.
Oh, really? All our grandfathers.
Yeah. My great-grandfather died in Liverpool.
She's going to do it on her own. She's bringing it back up.
Yeah, she's bringing it back. Yeah, but it's sold in Senators. Oh, yeah?
Here you go, mate. Have a nice trip home. That's mine. No, they're not mine.
See you later, fuckhead.
Cocked your right, Wacky little bastard. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving.
What's next? Toilet paper?
Guys, can you just give a bit of a space? I know you want to get the pictures, that sort of stuff is fantastic, but make it unsafe when you're all encroaching, we don't know who you are. Stand back, you to zoom in, use your zoom in lens. Just give them a bit of space to have a chat. So you're not crowding them up, making it dangerous.
You chucked an egg in Fraser's head. Did you get it? Do an interview.
Chris, there's a ring in there. If Alex was here, go 5 rounds.